Most families hide their cruelty behind closed doors, but mine preferred a caterer. When my mother told me to stay home for my twins' 25th birthday bash because nobody wants you there, she sounded terrifyingly reasonable. I almost listened, until a credit alert pinged on my phone, a soft inquiry from a bank in a town I hadn't visited in months. They didn't just want me gone. They wanted the credit score I'd taken with me. I liked my life in Larkhill because it was boring. I liked that my apartment complex was a beige rectangle with predictable plumbing and neighbors who nodded but never stopped to talk. I liked that my job as an operations manager for a mid-sized logistics firm involved solving problems that actually had solutions. If a shipment of industrial tile was delayed in Ohio, I could call a driver, reroute a truck, and fix it. There was a cause, there was an effect, and there was a resolution. My family did not operate on cause and effect. They operated on optics and mythology, and for 33 years, I had been the villain in a story I never wrote. It was a Tuesday afternoon when the piece of my carefully constructed life was punctured. I was standing in my kitchen, waiting for the electric kettle to boil, watching the gray rain slide down the window pane. My phone buzzed on the counter. It was a message from my cousin, Sarah. We weren't close. Sarah was too terrified of my mother to be truly close to me, but she occasionally sent me updates from Cedar Hollow, usually disguised as cheerful check-ins. This wasn't a check-in. It was a forwarded link to a digital invitation, the kind that unfolds with animated confetti and plays a soft instrumental track when you open it. The Collins family cordially invites you to celebrate the 25th birthday of Avery Collins. I stared at the screen. The background was a professional photo of Avery, looking ethereal in a cream-colored silk dress, standing in the garden of my childhood home. She was laughing at something off-camera, her blonde hair catching the meticulously edited sunlight. Beneath her name, in elegant, swirling gold script, was the tagline, "The light of our lives." I scrolled down. The details were extravagant. Valet parking, catering by the gilded table. A vendor that usually handled weddings, not birthdays, event planning by Hawthorne and Pine. This wasn't a birthday party. It was a coronation. I read the guest instructions: garden formal attire, no gifts, donations to the Cedar Hollow Heritage Fund suggested. I read the text again. The light of our lives. My name was nowhere. I scanned the hosted by section. Grant and Lorna Collins. I scanned the RSVP list, visible on the side. Half the town was invited. The mayor, the school board president, the people who had watched me grow up and then watched me leave. I put the phone down. The kettle clicked off, the water boiling, but I didn't pour it. I felt a familiar, cold weight settle in my stomach. The specific gravity of being a Collins daughter. It wasn't just that I hadn't been invited. It was that they were throwing a gala for my sister while I was 3 hours away, erasing me by omission. They called us the twins. It was their favorite parlor trick, their most insistent lie. I was 33. Avery was turning 25. The math did not work. Biology did not work. But Grant and Lorna Collins had never let reality get in the way of a good brand. Since Avery had come to us, my parents had insisted on dressing us in coordinating colors, referring to us as the girls, and forcing a narrative of mystical, faded sisterhood that smoothed over the glaring 8-year age gap. They told the town we were spiritual twins, born on the same day years apart. And Cedar Hollow, with its appetite for wholesome eccentrics, ate it up. But looking at this invitation, I realized the narrative had shifted. I wasn't the other half of the set anymore. I was a ghost. I waited an hour before I called my mother. I needed my voice to be steady. I sat on my beige sofa, rehearsing the opening lines, stripping them of any accusation if I sounded angry. Lorna would sigh and tell me I was being difficult. If I sounded sad, she would tell me I was being dramatic. I had to be neutral. I had to be Teflon. I dialed. The phone rang 4 times. Hello? Her voice was breathless, distracted. I could hear the background noise of Cedar Hollow, the wind chimes on the back porch, the murmur of the television. "Hi, Mom," I said. "It's Madeline." Madeline, she said. The warmth evaporated from her tone, replaced by a brittle, sugary politeness. I am in the middle of a meeting with the florists. Is this an emergency? No, I said. I just saw the invite for Avery's party. Sarah sent it to me. There was a pause. A long, heavy silence where I could hear her breathing. Sarah shouldn't have done that, Lorna said finally. We wanted to spare you the obligation. The obligation? I asked. It looks like a big event. I was thinking I could drive down. I haven't seen Avery in months. No, Lorna said. The word was sharp, like a glass breaking. Then she smoothed it over, her voice dropping into that terrifyingly reasonable register she used when she was gaslighting me. Madeline, sweetie, stay home. Nobody wants you there. The phrase hit me in the chest. It wasn't screamed. It was stated as a fact. As undeniable as the weather. The sky is blue. Water is wet. Nobody wants you there. I'm her sister, I said, my grip on the phone tightening until my knuckles turned white. It's her 25th birthday. Exactly, Lorna said. It is her day, and you know how you bring a heavy energy. We want this to be a celebration, not a therapy session. Don't make it weird. Madeline, just send a card. Or don't. It's fine. I don't bring a heavy energy, I said, my voice wavering despite my best efforts. I just exist. See? She said, vindication dripping from the syllable. You are starting already. I have to go. The florist is waiting. Stay in Larkhill. It is for the best. The line went dead. I sat there, the silence of my apartment suddenly feeling less like peace and more like a quarantine. I had been managed. I had been handled. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. A text message. This day isn't about you. Don't show up. It was from my father, Grant. But it wasn't his number. I stared at the digits at the top of the screen. I had my father's cell number memorized. I had his office line, his home line. This was a completely different area code, a number I had never seen before. I frowned. Why would Grant Collins, a man who prided himself on transparency and community standing, be texting his daughter from a burner phone? I typed back, Dad, is this a new number? No response. I tried Avery next, my twin, the golden child who had walked into our house when she was a teenager and effortlessly occupied the space I had never been able to fill. I didn't hate Avery. It was hard to hate someone who looked so perpetually anxious, like a deer waiting for a rifle shot. I called her. It went straight to voicemail. Hi, you've reached Avery. Leave a message. Her voice on the recording sounded forced, pitched an octave too high. Avery, it's me, I said. Mom told me not to come. Dad texted me from some weird number telling me to stay away. What is going on? Is everything okay? I hung up. I paced the length of my living room. Larkhill was safe, but Cedar Hollow was magnetic. It pulled at me, a gravity well of unresolved history. An hour later, a text appeared from Avery. Please don't come. It will explode. I stopped walking. I read it again. It will explode. Not I don't want you here. Not Mom is mad at you. But it will explode. The phrasing was wrong. Avery was a people pleaser. She spoke in soft absolutes and apologies. It will explode sounded violent. It sounded fearful. It implied that my presence wasn't just an annoyance, but a catalyst for something dangerous. I slept poorly that night. I dreamed of the house in Cedar Hollow, but the rooms were rearranged. The doors opened onto brick walls. My parents were in the dining room, laughing. But when I tried to scream, no sound came out. Friday morning broke with a gray, indifferent light. I dragged myself out of bed, made coffee, and opened my laptop to start my workday. I had a conference call at 10 regarding a distribution center in Memphis. I needed to focus. My personal email was open in a background tab. A notification popped up in the corner of the screen. Credit Karma. New inquiry detected. I ignored it at first. Probably a glitch, or maybe a routine check from my credit card company. I took a sip of coffee and answered 2 emails about pallet shipping costs. The notification popped up again. Identity guard. Alert, address, change request detected. I set my mug down. My heart did a strange, stuttering kick against my ribs. I clicked the notification. It opened my dashboard. I stared at the recent activity log. Inquiry. Ridgeway Credit Union. Type. Soft. Date. Today. Ridgeway Credit Union. I knew that name. It was a small, local institution in Cedar Hollow. My parents banked there. The mayor banked there. It had 2 branches, both within 10 miles of my childhood home. I did not bank there. I had never banked there. I scrolled down. Pending action. Address update. New address. 4402. Oakhaven Lane, Cedar Hollow. That was my parents' address. I felt a wash of cold sweat prickle along my hairline. I hadn't lived at Oakhaven Lane in 7 years. I had fought hard to untangle my finances from theirs when I moved to Larkhill. I had closed the joint account my mother insisted on for emergencies. I had established my own credit, my own lease, my own life. Why was a bank in Cedar Hollow pinging my credit report? I picked up my phone and found the number for Ridgeway Credit Union. My hands were shaking slightly. I told myself to calm down. It was probably a mistake, a clerical error. Maybe my dad had tried to add me as a beneficiary on something and the system got confused. A woman answered on the 3rd ring. Ridgeway Credit Union. This is Jennifer. How can I help you? Hi, I said. My name is Madeline Collins. I just got an alert that your bank ran a credit inquiry on me and requested an address change. I didn't authorize that. One moment. Ms. Collins, Jennifer said. Her voice was cheerful, unconcerned. Let me pull you up. Can I have the last 4 digits of your social? I gave them to her. I heard the click-clack of a keyboard. Okay, I see your profile here, Jennifer said. It looks like we are processing an application for you. The address update was part of the document upload this morning. I didn't upload any documents, I said. I am in Larkhill. I haven't been to Cedar Hollow in 6 months. The typing stopped. Oh, Jennifer said. The cheerfulness dampened. Well, the activity shows a secure upload initiated from a verified device in the Cedar Hollow area. We have a signature on file for the authorization. What kind of application? I asked. Is it a loan? A credit card? I can't go into specific details until the application is finalized, or unless you come into a branch with identification. Jennifer said, For security purposes, you have my identity right now, I said, my voice rising. I am telling you I didn't do it. You need to cancel it. I can put a note on the file, Jennifer said, sounding defensive now. But if the documents were signed and uploaded from a recognized device, do you share a computer with anyone? A spouse? A parent? A parent. My parents live in Cedar Hollow, I said. Grant and Lorna Collins. Do they have access to this? I can't discuss other account holders, Jennifer said. Like I said, Ms. Collins, I will flag the file for review. Is there anything else? I hung up. I felt sick. A recognized device. My parents had my old laptop. I had left it there years ago when I bought a new one. Wiped it, or thought I had, and told them they could use it for recipes. I called my mother again. It went straight to voicemail. I called my father. His main line went to voicemail. I didn't bother trying the new number he had texted from. I knew he wouldn't answer. I sent a text to the group chat that included both of them. Why is Ridgeway Credit Union running my credit? Did you guys sign me up for something? 5 minutes passed, then 10. Finally, a reply from Lorna. Don't start drama before your sister's party. You are always looking for a reason to make it about you. I stared at the phone. It was the perfect Collins deflection. She didn't say no. She didn't ask what I was talking about. She attacked my character. She framed my legitimate concern, financial fraud, as an emotional defect. Don't start drama. I went to my closet and pulled down a plastic bin of old paperwork. I needed to see what they had. I needed to remember what I might have signed years ago. In the fog of my 20s, when I was still trying to buy their approval with compliance, I dug through tax returns from 5 years ago, old pay stubs, And then I found it. A scanned copy of a family support agreement tied to a home renovation loan they had taken out when I was 26. I remembered the day. Grant had sat me down at the kitchen table. He had been crying, a rare, terrifying sight. He told me the house needed structural repairs, that the foundation was sinking. He said they needed a cosigner just for optics, that I wouldn't be liable, that it was just to show the bank the family was united. I had signed it. I had signed it because I wanted him to stop crying. I had signed it because I wanted to be the good daughter. I smoothed the paper out on my dining table. I looked at the signature, Madeline Collins. It looked like my name, but looking at it now, with the cold clarity of a woman who has been told to stay away. I saw the cracks. The M was too rounded. I write my M with sharp peaks. The S at the end trailed off lazily. I cross my T with a firm, straight line. This one was slanted. I compared it to the signature on my driver's license, which I pulled out of my wallet. They were different. It was subtle. If you weren't looking for it, you wouldn't see it. A bank teller glancing at a pile of papers wouldn't blink. But I knew my hand, and I knew my mother's hand. Lorna had a way of writing that was decorative, looping, and slow. The signature on the document wasn't mine. It was a forgery, a careful, practiced forgery. I realized then that this wasn't about a renovation loan from 7 years ago. If they had forged my signature then, they could do it again. And if Ridgeway Credit Union was getting document uploads today, on the eve of a party I was explicitly banned from, then the renovation loan was just the practice run. Avery's text echoed in my mind. It will explode. She wasn't talking about a fight. She was talking about a crime. I stood up. I went to my bedroom and pulled my weekend bag from the top shelf. I threw in 2 days' worth of clothes. I packed my laptop. I packed the folder of financial documents. I packed my passport and my birth certificate. I wasn't going to Cedar Hollow to scream. I wasn't going to crash the party and flip tables. That's what they wanted. That's what the unstable Madeline would do. That's the story they had already written for me. I was going to Cedar Hollow to witness. I walked out to my car. The rain had stopped, leaving the pavement slick and black. I threw the bag into the passenger seat. Larkhill was safe. Larkhill was quiet. But my name was being used in a town 3 hours south, and I wasn't going to let them bury me under a pile of debt and call it a family legacy. I started the engine. I didn't put on music. I drove in silence, watching the highway markers count down the distance to the place where I was born, and where, apparently, I was currently being reinvented against my will. I was going home, and I was going to be exactly as difficult as they feared. Cedar Hollow looked exactly the way a memory does when you try to hold on to it too tightly. Vivid, charming, and slightly distorted. I drove past the sign welcoming me to the Jewel of the Valley, just as the sun was beginning to dip behind the pines, casting long, bruising shadows across the road. I didn't drive to my parents' house. I didn't drive to the house where I grew up, the house where Avery was currently being feted as the second coming of Christ. Instead, I pulled into the parking lot of the Pine View Motel on the bleak edge of town. It was a single-story strip of rooms with peeling teal paint and a vending machine that hummed with an aggressive, mechanical rattle. It was the kind of place my mother would describe as unsavory, and my father would pretend didn't exist. It was perfect. I checked in under my own name, waiting for the clerk to react. He was a teenager with headphones around his neck, and he barely looked up from his phone. To him, Madeline Collins meant nothing. To him, I was just another traveler looking for a bed with polyester sheets. The anonymity felt like a warm bath. I unlocked room 12. It smelled of lemon polish and stale cigarettes masked by air freshener. I threw my bag on the bed and sat down in the single hard-back chair by the window. I watched the traffic pass on the highway, headlights cutting through the gathering dusk. I looked at my hands. They were resting on my knees, and they were vibrating. It wasn't a coarse shake. It was a fine, high-frequency tremor. I wasn't afraid of the party. I wasn't afraid of seeing Avery or confronting my parents. I was a 33-year-old woman with a 401k and a performance review due next week. I was an adult, but the body remembers what the mind tries to rationalize away. My body remembered that in Cedar Hollow, reality was fluid. In this town, if Grant and Lorna Collins said the sky was green, the neighbors would compliment the shade. I was shaking because I was afraid of the gaslighting. I was afraid that I would walk into that house with a stack of bank documents and leave believing that I was the one who had forged them. I needed caffeine. I needed to ground myself in the physical world before I started digging into the digital one. I drove back toward the center of town. Cedar Hollow had gentrified in the years since I left. The old hardware store was now a boutique selling artisanal olive oil. The dive bar where the high school seniors used to sneak in was now a craft brewery. I parked a block away from Juniper and Stone. It used to be a bakery called the Flooring Mill, but now it was all exposed brick, Edison bulbs, and succulents in geometric pots. It was the kind of place my sister Avery would love. It was the kind of place where my mother would hold court. I walked in. The bell above the door chimed, a cheerful sound that made my stomach tighten. I ordered a black coffee and a scone I didn't want, keeping my sunglasses on even though it was evening. "Madeline?" The voice came from the table nearest the pickup counter. I froze. I knew that voice. It was high, sweet, and laced with the specific brand of curiosity that fuels small towns. I turned. It was Becca Miller. We had been in the same biology class in 11th grade. She looked different now. Her hair was cut into a sharp, expensive bob, and she was wearing a sweater that probably cost more than my car note, but the eyes were the same. "Becca," I said, forcing a smile. "Hi, it has been a long time." "I thought that was you." Becca stood up, wiping crumbs from her fingers. She stepped into my personal space, beaming. "Oh my God, you look great. Larkhill must agree with you. We barely see you anymore." "I work a lot," I said, accepting my coffee from the barista. I wanted to turn and leave, but Becca was already blocking the exit path. "I bet," she said. She leaned in, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Are you in town for the big night? Everyone is talking about it. The event of the season. Honestly, your mom has been posting about the floral arrangements for weeks." "I am just passing through," I said carefully. "I have some business to attend to." Becca's smile faltered. A flicker of confusion crossed her face, followed quickly by a look of awkward realization. She took a half step back. "Oh," she said. "Right. Business." She paused, looking down at her latte art. "I guess that makes sense. I mean, after everything, it probably would be weird for you to be there." I felt the air in the room shift. The ambient noise of the espresso machine seemed to fade. "After everything?" I asked. My voice was calm, but my pulse was hammering in my throat. "What do you mean, Becca?" Becca looked pained. She glanced around the shop as if checking for eavesdroppers. "You know," she murmured. "The money stuff. When you left." I stared at her. "The money stuff." "Look, I don't listen to gossip," Becca said, which was a lie everyone in Cedar Hollow told before repeating it verbatim. "But people talk. You know how it is. After you moved to Larkhill, there was a lot of sympathy for your parents. It couldn't have been easy for them, cleaning up the mess." "What mess?" I asked. I wasn't being polite anymore. I needed her to say it. Becca flushed pink. "Well, the loans," she said, her voice barely audible. "The rumor was that you got into some trouble. Credit cards, maybe, or a bad investment. And Grant and Lorna had to bail you out. That you sort of took advantage of them and then took off. That is why they are so protective of Avery now. They don't want it happening again." The world tilted on its axis. I stood there, gripping my paper cup, feeling the heat radiate through the cardboard. It was a masterpiece. It was a narrative masterpiece. My parents hadn't just erased me, they had inverted the truth. They hadn't just told people I was difficult. They had told people I was a thief. They had planted the seed years ago that I was financially irresponsible, that I was a drain on their resources. It explained everything. It explained the pitying looks I had received the last few times I visited. It explained why no one questioned why I wasn't at the party. Of course the leech isn't invited to the celebration. Of course the prodigal daughter who drained the accounts isn't welcome at the legacy event. I see, I said. My voice sounded distant, like it was coming from someone else. Is that what they say? I mean, that is just what I heard, Becca said, backtracking rapidly. You know people, they love drama. I am sure it is blown out of proportion. It is certainly a story, I said. It was good to see you, Becca. I walked out before she could reply. I walked out into the cool evening air and took a deep breath. Trying to keep my hands from shaking again, they had framed me. They had used my silence against me. Every time I had swallowed an insult, every time I had walked away to avoid a fight, they had filled the void with a lie. I didn't go back to the motel. I sat in my car and searched for a name on my phone. Brenna Hale. I had met Brenna 4 years ago when my company needed a local affidavit for a shipping dispute in the county. She wasn't a corporate shark. She was a general practice attorney who worked out of an office above a locksmith shop on 2nd Street. She was blunt, unglamorous, and owed nothing to the Collins family social circle. I called her office. It was 6:30 in the evening, but she answered. Hale Law, she said. Her voice was raspier than I remembered. Brenna, it is Madeline Collins, I said. From Larkhill Logistics. Do you remember me? The shipping container dispute, she said immediately. You had your paperwork organized. I like that. What can I do for you? Madeline? Are you in legal trouble? I think my parents are stealing my identity, I said. There was a silence on the line, then the sound of a chair creaking. Where are you? She asked. I am in Cedar Hollow. Come by, she said. I am still here. Bring whatever paper you have. Brenna's office was exactly as I recalled. Cramped, smelling faintly of metal shavings from the shop downstairs, and stacked floor to ceiling with files. Brenna herself sat behind a desk that looked like it had survived a war. She was a woman in her 50s with graying hair pulled back in a severe ponytail and eyes that had seen every variety of human dishonesty. She didn't offer me tea. She pointed to the chair opposite her. Talk, she said. I told her everything. The invitation, the stay-home commands, the text from the new number, the alerts from Ridgeway Credit Union, the rumors Becca had spouted at the coffee shop. Brenna took notes on a yellow legal pad. She wrote quickly, her pen scratching against the paper. When I finished, she capped the pen and looked at me. You want the good news or the bad news? She asked. There is good news? The good news is you are here, and you are suspicious, she said. Most people don't catch this until the sheriff shows up with an eviction notice. The bad news is that family fraud is the messiest kind of law there is. It is not just about numbers. It is about jury perception. And in this town, your parents are the Kennedys. I know, I said. If you go to the police right now, they will call your father. Brenna said. Grant will say it is a misunderstanding, that he was helping you, that you are confused. The deputy will believe him because he plays golf with him. You will look like the hysterical daughter causing a scene. So what do I do? We get cold, Brenna said. We get boring. We get facts. First, we lock everything down. We freeze your credit at all 3 bureaus. Right now. Tonight, second, we pull the full reports, not the summary you get on the app. The detailed raw data. We need to see every inquiry, every address link, every account. And then? And then you do not confront them, Brenna said, leaning forward. Her eyes were hard. Do not go to that house and scream. Do not text them accusations. If this goes to court, you need to be the sane one. You need to be the one who tried to resolve it quietly while they were committing felonies. If you blow up, you give them the ammunition they need to paint you as unstable. They are already painting me as unstable, I said, and a thief. Then prove them wrong by being a surgeon, she said. Dissect it. Don't smash it. We spent the next hour at her computer. We initiated the freezes, then we paid for the full credit reports. When the file for Equifax loaded, Brenna scrolled down in silence. She stopped at page 4. Here, she said. She turned the monitor so I could see. It was an active line of credit, a home equity line of credit, seemingly tied to a property I didn't own, but my name was the primary borrower. "Who is the cosigner?" I asked, squinting at the screen. "G. Collins," Brenna read. "Opened 14 months ago. Current balance, $42,000. "I didn't sign that," I whispered. "I have never seen that." "Look at the address history," Brenna said, pointing to the bottom of the screen. There were 6 verification hits in the last year. All of them linked my social security number to 4402 Oakhaven Lane. "They have been living inside your financial skin," Brenna said. "This isn't just one loan. Madeline, this is a profile. They are keeping your credit active and anchored to their address so that when they apply for something, the algorithms don't flag it as suspicious. They have made you a silent partner in their life." I felt a wave of nausea. It was a violation deeper than theft. It was a kind of identity cannibalism. They were feeding off my clean record to sustain their lifestyle. "I need to check the county records," I said. "If there is a HELOC, there has to be property involved." "The Recorder of Deeds office opens at 8 tomorrow," Brenna said. "Go there, request everything under your name, deeds, liens, judgments, get certified copies." I left Brenna's office with a list of instructions and a feeling of grim determination. The fear of gaslighting was gone, replaced by the cold weight of evidence. Numbers didn't lie, signatures didn't have intentions. The next morning, I was the first person at the counter of the Cedar Hollow County Records Building. The clerk was a woman I didn't know, which was a small mercy. I filled out the request form. "Name?" she asked. "Madeline Collins." She typed it in. It might take a minute. I waited. The fluorescent lights hummed. I watched a dust mote float in the stagnant air. "Here we go," the clerk said. She printed 3 pages and slid them across the counter. "Just the one active filing." I looked at the document. It wasn't a deed. I didn't own the house on Oakhaven Lane. It was a lien. Mechanics lien/security interest. Debtor. Grant and Lorna Collins. Guarantor. Madeline Collins. I read the fine print. It was dated 3 years ago. It was a lien placed against the property for improvements and renovations, secured by my signature as a guarantor. If they defaulted on the debt, the creditors could come after me, but more importantly, my name was the structural integrity holding their house up. I walked out to my car and sat in the driver's seat. I put the papers on the dashboard. I stared at the windshield. The puzzle pieces were clicking into place with a terrifying logic. My parents were not wealthy. I had always suspected it, but the facade was so perfect, the vacations, the cars, the parties, that I had assumed they had a secret inheritance or investments I didn't understand. But they didn't. They had debt. They had massive, crushing debt. And when their own credit tapped out, when they couldn't borrow another cent to keep the lights on and the wine cellar stocked, they had turned to the one asset they controlled completely, me. But they couldn't just ask me. If they had asked, "Madeline, can you co-sign a loan so we can remodel the kitchen?" I might have said yes, or I might have asked questions. Questions were dangerous, so they had engineered a long-term psychological campaign. They made me the difficult one. They made me the one who was bad with money in the eyes of the town. They exhausted me with criticism until I stopped coming home, until I stopped looking at the mail, until I just wanted to escape, and in my absence, they had used my name. If I tried to expose them now, they would use the rumors they had planted. Madeline is desperate. Madeline is broke. She is making up lies about us to get money. It was evil. It was brilliant. My phone buzzed in my lap. Blocked number. I stared at it. I knew who it was. I answered. "Hello? Madeline?" The voice was a whisper. It sounded like air escaping a tire. "Avery," I said. "Where are you?" "I can't talk long," she hissed. "I am in the bathroom at the club. Mom is outside." "Avery, listen to me," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I need you to tell me the truth. Are they using my name?" There was a silence. A long, terrified silence. I could hear the background noise of the club, clinking silverware, laughter. "I think they already did," Avery whispered. Her voice broke. "What do you mean?" "I saw Dad with some papers in his study last night," she said. "He was practicing, copying something. He had your high school yearbook open on the desk. He closed it when I walked in." "Okay," I said. "Okay, Avery, you need to stay away from anything they ask you to sign." "It is worse," Avery said. "Madeline, the party." "It isn't just a party." "What is it?" "It is a presentation," she said. "Dad has been practicing a speech for 3 days. He is calling it The Collins Legacy. He is going to announce something about the business, about the future. He keeps saying, 'We are securing the next generation.' He sounds manic, like he believes it." "He believes it because he has to," I said. "It is the only way he can justify what he is doing." "Please don't come," Avery pleaded. "If you come, he will— I don't know what he will do, but he is cornered. I can see it in his eyes." "I am not coming to fight," I said. "I am just trying to understand." "They said you were crazy," Avery whispered. "They told me you were having a breakdown in Larkhill. That is why we couldn't invite you, to protect you." "I am not having a breakdown," I said. "I am reading a lien document with my name on it that I never signed." "Oh God," Avery said. "I have to go. Mom is coming." The line went dead. I sat there for a long time. The sun was fully down now. The streetlights flickered on, buzzing orange in the darkness. The Collins Legacy. I started the car. I didn't go back to the motel. I drove toward Oakhaven Lane. I didn't turn onto the street. I took the back way, driving slowly past the rear of the property, which bordered a public park. I parked under the shadow of a large oak tree and looked through the chain-link fence. The backyard was transformed. It looked like a movie set. Enormous white tents peeked toward the stars. Strings of Edison lights crisscrossed the lawn, creating a warm, golden canopy. There were round tables set with white linens and crystal that caught the light. A stage had been erected near the rose garden. Men in black t-shirts were adjusting a sound system. A florist was arranging towers of white hydrangeas, and there, hanging above the stage, was the banner. It was massive, silk, probably. "Happy 25th, Avery," and beneath it, in the same gold script from the invitation, "The Collins Legacy begins." I watched as my father walked out onto the stage. Even from this distance, I knew his walk, the confident stride, the chest puffed out. He pointed at the banner, directing a worker to lower the left side by an inch. He looked commanding. He looked successful. He looked like a man who had successfully mortgaged his daughter's existence to build a shrine to his own ego. It wasn't a family celebration. It was a product launch, and I was the raw material they had burned to fuel the factory. I put the car in gear and rolled away. Leaving the lights behind me, the shaking in my hands had stopped. I wasn't afraid of being gaslit anymore. You can't gaslight someone who has seen the machinery behind the curtain. I wasn't going to stay home. I wasn't going to let them have their legacy. Tomorrow, I was going to introduce them to the reality they had spent 30 years avoiding, and I was going to bring the receipts. The morning sun hit the peeling paint of the Pine View Motel with an unforgiving brightness. I sat on the edge of the bed, my laptop open, the screen glowing with a list of local event planners. I had slept 4 hours, waking up with the taste of stale coffee and anxiety in my mouth. My plan was simple. I needed to follow the money, but the money trail had vanished into the opaque bureaucracy of banking privacy laws. I needed a side door. I looked at the digital invitation again. Event planning by Hawthorne and Pine. They were the premier agency in the county. If you wanted a wedding that looked like it belonged in a magazine, you hired them. If you wanted to rebrand your family as American royalty, you paid their invoice. I dialed the number. I put on my best corporate voice, the one I used when I had to tell a client that their shipment was stuck in customs and it wasn't my fault. "Hawthorne and Pine, this is Sarah. How can we bring your vision to life?" "Good morning, Sarah," I said. This is Madeline Collins. I am calling regarding the details for the Avery Collins celebration tomorrow night. Oh, hello, Ms. Collins? Sarah's voice brightened, though I could hear the frantic clicking of a mouse in the background. We are so excited. The tent setup is looking absolutely gorgeous. I am sure it is, I said. I am actually calling with a bit of a logistical question. We are handling some final security checks for the family, just standard privacy measures given the guest list, and I needed to confirm the vendor access list, specifically regarding the corporate partners. Security? Sarah hesitated. I wasn't aware of a security team. Your mother just mentioned the valet service. It is a precaution my father insisted on. I lied. We just want to make sure we know who is on the property. I have the catering staff listed, but I wanted to double-check the representatives for the sponsorship. I know there was a business partner involved. I held my breath. It was a gamble. I was fishing, hoping that the legacy speech Avery mentioned meant there was corporate money involved in the party itself. Oh, right, Sarah said, her voice dropping into a more confidential register. The team from Cedar Hollow Community Bank. They are not technically vendors, but they have a VIP table near the stage. Do you need their names for the badges? Cedar Hollow Community Bank. It wasn't Ridgeway. Ridgeway Credit Union was where the soft inquiry had come from. This was a second institution. Yes, I said, writing the name down on the motel notepad. That would be helpful. And they are the primary sponsor for the presentation portion? Yes, for the legacy announcement, Sarah said. We have their logo projected on the backdrop during your father's speech. Is that okay? Mr. Collins approved the proofs last week. That is perfect, I said. Thank you. Sarah, I will let the team know. I hung up. My hand was cramping around the pen. My parents weren't just taking out loans. They were soliciting corporate sponsorship for their family narrative. They were turning Avery's birthday into a trade show for their debt. I showered quickly, scrubbing the smell of the motel off my skin, and dressed in the sharpest clothes I had packed, a navy blazer and tailored trousers. I needed to look like I owned the building I was about to walk into. Cedar Hollow Community Bank was on Main Street, a red brick fortress with white pillars that screamed stability. It was the kind of place where the tellers gave lollipops to children and knew everyone's grandmother by name. I walked in at 10 in the morning. The air was cool and smelled of money, that specific scent of crisp paper and carpet cleaner. I walked straight to the desk with the branch manager placard. A woman with frosted hair and a name tag that read, Patricia looked up. She had the guarded, polite smile of someone who had worked in customer service for 30 years. Can I help you? I need to speak with you regarding a sensitive security matter, I said. I didn't smile back. I placed my driver's license on her desk. My name is Madeline Collins. Patricia's eyes flicked to the ID, then back to my face. A flicker of recognition passed behind her glasses. In a town this size, the Collins name had weight. Is this regarding the event? She asked. I believe Mr. Collins has been dealing with our commercial lending officer. Mr. Henderson? No, I said. This is regarding identity fraud. Patricia froze. The air conditioning vent above us hummed loudly in the silence. I don't understand, she said. I have reason to believe that a file has been opened at this institution in my name, or using my name as a guarantor, without my physical presence or authorization. I said, I am requesting to see any and all documentation linked to my Social Security number. Patricia's smile vanished completely. She picked up my license. Ms. Collins, if you are not a signatory on an account, I am telling you I believe I am a signatory, I cut in. But I didn't sign it. I live in Larkhill. I have not been in this building in 10 years. If there is a signature on file, it is a forgery. And if you refuse to check, I will be contacting the State Banking Commission this afternoon to report willful negligence. It was a bluff, mostly, but it worked. The word commission makes bankers nervous. Please lower your voice, Patricia said, glancing around the empty lobby. Let me check the system. She typed, I watched her reflection in the glass partition behind her. I saw her brow furrow. I saw her lean in. "Well," she said softly. "What?" "There is no personal checking account," she said, "but your profile is attached to a commercial file, the Collins Family Trust." "I am not a trustee," I said. "You are listed as a guaranteeing officer," she said. She turned the screen away from me. "There was a document upload 3 days ago, a statement of solidarity and asset verification." "Show me the signature," I said. "I cannot show you the full file without Mr. Henderson present," she said. "He is out until Monday." "Show me the signature, Patricia," I said. "If it is mine, you have nothing to worry about. If it isn't, you are currently sheltering a felony." She hesitated, then clicked a few times. She printed a single page, a cropped image of a signature block. She slid it across the desk, her hand trembling slightly. I looked at it. Madeline Collins. It was the same one, the rounded M, the lazy S, but below it, there was a timestamp. Digital upload. IP address. Verified. Location. 4402 Oak Haven Lane. "This was uploaded from my parents' house," I said. "I was in Larkhill 3 days ago. I have time-stamped work emails and security badge logs to prove it." Patricia pulled the paper back. See? "I want this file flagged," I said. "I want a hold placed on any disbursement of funds associated with this guarantee, and I want you to preserve every digital record, every login, every keystroke associated with this account." "I can flag it for review," Patricia said. She looked pale. "But I cannot freeze a commercial line of credit based on a verbal complaint. Mr. Henderson will have to—" "Flag it," I said. "And tell Mr. Henderson that if any money moves on the strength of this signature, he will be named in the lawsuit." I walked out. My knees didn't buckle until I was in the safety of my car. They had built a trust, a family trust. It sounded so noble. It sounded like old money, but it was just a shell game, a bucket to catch loans they couldn't qualify for individually, using my credit rating as the bottom. I drove back to the locksmith shop and climbed the stairs to Brenna Hale's office. I didn't knock. I walked in and sat down. Brenna looked up from a stack of files. "You look like you just saw a ghost." "I saw a forgery," I said. "Cedar Hollow Community Bank. They have a commercial loan pending. My name is on it as a guarantor." Brenna took off her glasses. She rubbed the bridge of her nose. "Did you get a copy?" "They wouldn't give me the full file," I said. "But the manager admitted it was uploaded from my parents' IP address." "Okay," Brenna said. "That is good. The IP address is hard evidence. But we have a problem." "What problem?" "The problem of implied consent," Brenna said. "I did some digging into the county filings you pulled this morning. The lien on the house? The one from 3 years ago?" "Yes. There is a power of attorney document recorded with the county clerk in that same bundle," Brenna said. "It is dated 5 years ago. It gives Grant Collins the authority to sign for you in matters of family estate management." I stared at her. "I never signed a power of attorney." "Did you sign a stack of papers when you graduated college?" Brenna asked. "Insurance forms? Beneficiary updates? Something your dad slid across the table and said, 'Just standard stuff. Honey, sign here?'" I closed my eyes. I remembered a summer afternoon. I was 22. I was moving to my first apartment. My father had a folder. "We just want to make sure you are covered if anything happens to us. Madeline, it is for your protection." "Maybe," I whispered. "If that document holds up," Brenna said. "Then technically, he didn't forge your signature. He signed as your agent. He abused the power. Certainly, using it to saddle you with debt for his own benefit is a breach of fiduciary duty. But it makes the fraud argument much harder. It turns a criminal case into a messy civil war." "So they win?" I asked. "No," Brenna said. "But it means the police won't arrest them tonight. It means we have to prove he acted against your interests. And to do that, you need to show that you explicitly revoked that permission." Or that he misled you about what you were signing. He misled me my entire life, I said. That is poetic, but it is not evidence, Brenna said. Listen to me, Madeline. They are going to pivot. If you confront them, they won't deny signing it. They will say, Madeline agreed to help us. Madeline wanted to support the family. Now she is changing her mind because she is jealous of Avery. They will play the victim. They will say you are unstable. They are already saying that. Then you have to be the opposite, Brenna said. Collect the hard proof, get the bank records preserved, and do not give them a single inch of emotional outburst. If you scream, you lose. I left Brenna's office feeling heavy. The legal system was a blunt instrument, and my parents were masters of soft power. They dealt in impressions, in social capital, in the gray areas where love and exploitation overlapped. I needed to talk to the only other person inside the blast radius. I texted Avery, grocery store, parking lot, row F, 20 minutes. She didn't reply. But 20 minutes later, a white sedan pulled in next to my rental car. I got out and climbed into her passenger seat. The car smelled of vanilla air freshener and panic. Avery was wearing a white jumpsuit with gold buttons. It looked expensive. It also looked ridiculous for a Tuesday afternoon in a grocery store parking lot. She looked like she was in costume for a play about a rich girl. Up close, the illusion of perfection cracked. Her foundation was a shade too light. Her cuticles were picked raw. Her eyes were darting around the parking lot as if she expected a sniper. You shouldn't be here, she said. Her voice was tight. Hello to you too, I said. Mom is tracking my location, Avery said. I told her I was picking up ice. I have 5 minutes. Avery, I said gently. I went to the bank. I know about the family trust. I know my name is on the loan. Avery flinched. She gripped the steering wheel. I didn't sign it. I swear. Madeline. They asked me to. But I said I couldn't be a witness for that. I believe you, I said. But you need to tell me what is happening. Why is there a legacy speech? Why is there a corporate sponsor? Because they are broke, Avery said. She stared out the windshield at a woman loading bags into a minivan. They are completely broke. The renovation loan is gone. The credit cards are maxed. This party, it is a Hail Mary. Dad thinks if he launches the Collins Legacy brand, he can get investors. He thinks he can franchise. Something, I don't even know what. Being a Collins? Being perfect? And he needs my credit to float the launch, I said. He needs everyone's credit, Avery said. But mostly yours. You have the clean record. Why do you stay? I asked. You are 25. You can leave. You can come to Larkhill. Avery turned to look at me. Her eyes were wet. I can't. Why not? Because of the story, she said. The twin thing. Avery, we aren't twins, I said. We know that. The town knows that. It is just a weird quirk Mom and Dad insist on. No, Avery said. You don't understand. It is not just a quirk. She took a breath. A shuddering gasp. I am not your biological sister, she said. The air left the car. I stared at her. What? I am not your sister, Avery repeated. I am a cousin, a second cousin, from Dad's side. My mom died when I was 14. My dad wasn't around. I sat there, processing. I remembered when Avery appeared. I was 22, just graduating college. My parents had told me she was a surprise, a half-sister who had been living with an aunt. Reclaiming her place in the family, it had been vague. It had been confusing. But I had been so busy trying to leave, trying to escape their criticism, that I hadn't questioned it. They took me in, Avery said. They saved me from foster care. But there was a condition. The condition, I said. They said it would be simpler if we were sisters, Avery said. And then they said it would be fate if we were twins, spiritual twins. They said it would stop the questions. They said it would make the family look whole. They erased your identity, I said. They gave me a life, Avery said. I was a kid. Madeline, I was scared. They gave me a room. They gave me clothes. They told me who I was, and everyone in Cedar Hollow just accepted it. Because Grant and Lorna said it with such confidence, who questions them? So you have been playing a role for 10 years, I said. I owe them, Avery said. That is what they tell me every day. We saved you. We made you a Collins. Don't you dare be ungrateful. She looked at me, her face crumbling. And now they are doing it to you, but they are making you the villain. They need a reason why you aren't part of the legacy. So they tell everyone you are unstable, that you are jealous of me, that you are bitter because you didn't turn out as marketable. Marketable, I repeated. It is a business. Madeline, Avery said, this family is a business. I am the product. You are the bad debt. I looked at the young woman sitting next to me. She wasn't the golden child. She was a hostage. She was a prop in a play she hadn't written, terrified that if she stopped reciting her lines, she would be thrown back into the void she came from. My anger shifted. It stopped being a hot, reactive thing and cooled into something solid, something sharp. They are telling people I am unstable, I said, so that if I speak up about the fraud, no one will believe me. Yes, Avery said. Mom told the neighbors you were having episodes. She said that is why you aren't coming, to protect you. I reached out and put my hand on Avery's arm. She flinched, then relaxed. I am not unstable, I said, and I'm not staying home. Madeline, please, Avery said. Don't cause a scene. They will destroy you. I am not going to cause a scene, I said. I am going to be a witness. There is a difference. I have to go, Avery said. Mom is calling. She showed me her phone. Mom flashed on the screen. Go, I said. But Avery, you don't have to lie for them anymore. You can just stop. She looked at me with tragic, terrified eyes. I don't know how. She drove away. I watched her white car disappear into traffic. I sat in my rental car for a long time. I thought about the power of attorney. I thought about the legacy banner. I thought about Avery, stripped of her history and repainted as my twin, to satisfy my parents' obsession with symmetry and control. I wasn't the difficult one. I was the inconvenient truth. I started the car and drove back to the motel. I had work to do. I called Brenna. I am going to the party, I said. Madeline, Brenna warned. I am going as a guest, I said. I am going to stand there and drink sparkling water. But I need you on standby. If they try to get me to sign anything, or if they try to announce that I have already signed something, I need you to be ready to walk through that front door. I can do that, Brenna said. But you have to promise me. No screaming, no crying. I promise, I said. I hung up. I set up my laptop on the rickety desk. I turned on the webcam. I needed insurance. If something happened to me, if they managed to twist the narrative so tightly that I couldn't breathe, I needed a record that existed outside their distortion field. I looked into the camera. I took a deep breath. My name is Madeline Collins, I said clearly. It is Friday, October 12th. The time is 4:30 p.m. I held up the newspaper I had bought at the gas station to prove the date. I am currently in Cedar Hollow. I am of sound mind. I have not authorized any new loans, lines of credit, or business partnerships. I have not signed a power of attorney in the last 5 years, and I hereby revoke any previous authorizations effectively immediately. I paused. I looked into the lens, imagining my parents watching this. I am attending a party tonight at 4402 Oakhaven Lane, I continued. I have been told by my family not to attend because I am unstable. I am recording this to demonstrate that I am calm, rational, and aware of the financial irregularities connected to my identity. If I am presented as anything else, it is a lie. I stopped the recording. I saved the file. I emailed it to Brenna. I emailed it to my work account. I emailed it to my cousin Sarah. Then I stood up and walked to the closet. I pulled out the dress I had packed. It wasn't flashy. It was a simple, dark blue sheath dress. It was the kind of dress you wear to a board meeting. I wasn't going to a birthday party. I was going to a deposition. I checked my reflection in the mirror. I looked tired, but my hands were steady. It was time to go home. I dressed for the party with the cold precision of an undertaker. I did not choose something festive, and I did not choose something funereal. I chose a navy blue sheath dress that I usually wore for quarterly budget reviews. It was high-necked, long-sleeved, and tailored to within an inch of its life. It was a dress that said, I was here to work, not to celebrate. It was a dress that offered no loose fabric for anyone to grab onto. I looked at myself in the motel mirror. My hair was pulled back in a low, severe bun. I wore no jewelry except for a small watch. I applied makeup sparingly, enough to hide the dark circles from 2 nights of insomnia, but not enough to look like I was trying to compete with the glamour that awaited me at Oakhaven Lane. I wanted to be a void. I wanted to be a blank space in their carefully curated tableau. On the bed sat my leather tote bag. It was the heaviest thing in the room, weighted down not by essentials, but by evidence. Inside was a folder containing the printed credit alerts from Ridgeway Credit Union. There were the certified copies of the lien from the county recorder's office. There was the notarized affidavit I had drafted with Brenna, explicitly stating that I had not authorized any financial activity in Cedar Hollow in the last 5 years, and there was a thumb drive containing the video statement I had recorded the day before. I placed my hand on the bag. It felt solid. It was the only thing in my life that felt real right now. I left the motel at 5 o'clock. The sun was beginning its long, golden descent, bathing the valley in the kind of nostalgic light that photographers kill for. It was the magic hour, the time of day when everything looks softer, richer, and more beautiful than it actually is. It was the perfect lighting for a lie. I drove toward my parents' house, taking the back roads to avoid the main flow of traffic. I knew the rhythm of their parties: the guests, the mayor, the school board members, the local business owners, would arrive at 6. They would drink cocktails on the lawn until 7. Speeches would start at 7:30. I arrived at 5:30. I parked my rental car 3 streets over, in front of a house I didn't recognize. I walked the rest of the way, my heels clicking softly on the pavement. The neighborhood was quiet, the lawns manicured into submission. When I turned the corner onto Oakhaven Lane, I saw it. The house was glowing. It wasn't just lit. It was illuminated. Uplights washed the brick facade in a soft amber hue. The oak trees were wrapped in thousands of twinkling fairy lights. A massive white tent occupied the side yard, its peaks rising like the spires of a cathedral. Valets in white jackets were already setting up their stand at the end of the driveway, joking with each other as they waited for the luxury SUVs to start rolling in. I didn't go to the front door. I slipped through the neighbor's hedge, a shortcut I had used 1,000 times as a teenager when I was late for curfew. I emerged in the side garden, behind the catering tent. The backyard was a hive of activity. Servers in black vests were carrying trays of crystal flutes. A sound technician was taping down cables near the stage. The air smelled of roasted garlic, expensive perfume, and fresh-cut flowers. A young woman in a catering uniform hurried past me, carrying a stack of linen napkins. She stopped when she saw me, her eyes widening slightly as she took in my severe dress and the way I was standing, not like a guest, but like someone who owned the ground beneath her feet. "Oh," she said, flustered. "I am so sorry. Ma'am, are you with the family? I didn't know anyone was back here yet." The question landed with a sharp, ironic sting. "Are you with the family?" "Yes," I said quietly. "I am with the family." She nodded, relieved, and gestured toward the main tent. "The florists are just finishing the centerpieces. It looks beautiful." "Thank you," I said. She hurried away, leaving me standing in the shadow of the garage. I belonged here, and I didn't. I was the ghost in the machine. I had the same nose as the man hosting the party, the same chin as the woman greeting the caterers, but I was the one element they had rigorously engineered out of the system. I moved closer to the house, staying in the blind spot of the security lights. The side door to the garage was open. I heard voices. I froze. I knew those voices better than my own. "It is a bit tight on the left side," my father said. His voice was booming, confident, the voice he used when he was trying to sell something he didn't quite understand. "Grant Collins always ensures a perfect fit." "Stop fidgeting with your tie," my mother said. Her voice was lower, sharper. It was the voice of the director. "You look fine. Did you review the talking points for the bank toast?" "I have it memorized. Lorna," Grant said. I heard the clinking of glass, the sound of liquid being poured. "To the future, to legacy, to cleaning up old loose ends." I felt a chill slide down my spine. Loose ends. "Do you think she will call?" Grant asked. The bravado slipped for a fraction of a second. "Who?" Lorna asked, though she knew exactly who. "Madeline." Lorna let out a short, dismissive laugh. It was a sound devoid of humor. "She won't show. She never does. She is probably sitting in her apartment in Larkhill, feeling sorry for herself. She is predictable. Grant, she avoids conflict. That is why this works." "She asked about the bank," Grant said. "The text she sent." "She is fishing," Lorna said. "She doesn't know anything. Even if she suspects, she won't do anything about it. She is too afraid of looking like the bad guy. We have primed the pump. Grant, everyone knows she is fragile. If she shows up and starts shouting, she just proves our point." "Right," Grant said. "Right. Fragile." They spoke about me like I was a weather forecast. She might rain, she might not. Bring an umbrella just in case. There was no love in it, but there was no hate either. It was worse than hate. It was utility. I was a variable in their equation, a structural weakness they had reinforced with lies. I stepped back, my heart hammering against my ribs. I wasn't fragile. I was furious. But Brenna's voice echoed in my head. "If you scream, you lose." I walked away from the garage and rounded the corner toward the patio. The sun was dipping below the horizon now, and the fairy lights were taking over, turning the garden into a glittering fantasy. Avery was standing near the stage, inspecting a flower arrangement. She looked breathtaking. She was wearing a floor-length gown of champagne silk that shimmered like liquid gold. Her hair was swept up in an intricate chignon. She looked like a princess in a fairy tale. She also looked like she was about to vomit. She was twisting a diamond ring on her finger, a ring I didn't recognize, and her eyes were fixed on the ground. She looked small inside the dress, as if the fabric was holding her up, rather than the other way around. I walked up to her. I didn't make a sound, but she sensed me. She whipped her head around, her eyes wide with terror. "Madeline," she whispered. The color drained from her face, leaving her makeup standing out like a mask. "You came." She looked around frantically, checking for our parents. "I told you not to come," she hissed. "They will kill you, or they will kill me." I didn't reach out to hug her. I didn't touch her. I just looked at her, standing there in the costume they had bought for her, playing the role they had scripted. "You look beautiful, Avery," I said. My voice was calm, steady. "Please go," she begged. "Before the guests get here, you don't know what they are planning." "I know enough," I said. "I heard them in the garage." Avery flinched. Tears pooled in her eyes, threatening to spill over and ruin the professional makeup job. "You don't have to lie for them anymore," I said. I said it softly, a simple statement of fact. Avery stared at me. Her lip trembled. For a second, I thought she was going to break. I thought she was going to drop the flowers and scream. The mask slipped, and I saw the terrified cousin beneath the twin branding. But then, movement caught her eye. A sleek black car was pulling into the driveway. The first guests? Avery inhaled sharply. She blinked the tears back. She squared her shoulders. The smile she pasted onto her face was terrifying. It was bright, engaging, and completely dead. "I have to go," she said, her voice pitching up into her public register. "Happy birthday to me." She turned and walked away. the silk train of her dress rustling over the stone patio like a whisper. I retreated to the edge of the tent, finding a spot near a pillar where I could see everything but remain inconspicuous. I was a dark smudge in a room of light. The party began in earnest. The crowd swelled. Men in suits and women in cocktail dresses filled the space, their laughter rising into the tent peaks. I recognized faces from my childhood. Neighbors, teachers, shop owners. They all looked older, softer, wealthier. I watched my parents work the room. They were magnificent. Grant was clapping men on the back, his laugh booming. Lorna was gliding from group to group, touching arms, accepting compliments with a humble tilt of her head. They looked like the perfect couple. They looked like the pillars of the community. A couple I didn't recognize approached Grant near the bar. The man was wearing a suit that cost more than my car. The woman was dripping in pearls. "Grant," the man said, shaking my father's hand vigorously. "Congratulations on the new venture. We were thrilled to see the prospectus." I moved closer, pretending to examine a tray of hors d'oeuvres. "Thank you, Jim," Grant said. "It has been a long time coming. We are finally ready to take the Collins name to the next level. This isn't just a birthday, it is a launch." "And the financing came through?" the woman asked. "Secured and signed," Grant said, winking. "We have the backing of the community, and the family assets are fully leveraged to support the growth." Fully leveraged. My stomach twisted. He wasn't just talking about the house. He was talking about the entities, the trust, the loans. The new venture was likely a shell company designed to absorb the debt while they skimmed the capital, all backed by my credit score and Avery's compliance. At 7:30, the music faded. A spotlight hit the stage. My father walked up to the microphone. He looked radiant. He looked like a man who had won. "Friends, family, neighbors," Grant began. His voice was thick with emotion. "Thank you for being here tonight. 30 years ago, Lorna and I started our journey in this town. We built a home. We built a family." He paused for applause. He got it. "But tonight isn't about the past," he said. "It is about the future. It is about the light of our lives. Avery," he gestured to Avery, who walked onto the stage. She stood next to him, smiling that dead, perfect smile. "As many of you know, Avery has been the heart of this house," Grant said. "And as she turns 25, we felt it was time to make things official. We are formalizing the next chapter of the Collins legacy." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a blue velvet folder. "Tonight, I am proud to announce that we are transferring the controlling interest of the Collins Family Trust and the deed to the Oak Haven estate into Avery's name, to be held in stewardship for her future." The crowd gasped. Then they cheered. I stood frozen. It was a trap. It was a beautiful, gilded trap. They weren't giving her an inheritance. They were giving her the liability. They were transferring the assets, which were likely encumbered by the lien I had found, to Avery. By putting the house in her name, they were shielding themselves from the inevitable foreclosure, and by linking the trust to her, they were making her the face of the debt. But they needed a guarantor. Avery had no credit history. She had no income. That was where I came in. My name was the engine under the hood of this car wreck. I was the silent partner guaranteeing the loans that purchased these assets for Avery. I scanned the crowd. I needed to find someone who knew the truth. I saw her. Standing near the VIP table was the woman from Cedar Hollow Community Bank, Patricia. She was holding a glass of white wine, looking nervous. She wasn't clapping. I walked over to her. I moved through the crowd like a shark cutting through a school of fish. I stopped directly in front of her. "Ms. Collins?" she stammered, nearly dropping her wine. I didn't expect to see you here." "I bet you didn't," I said. I kept my voice low, pleasant. "Are you enjoying the party?" "It is lovely," she said, her eyes darting toward the exit. "Tell me," I said, leaning in slightly. "Are you here as a guest, Patricia? Or are you here for the signing?" Her face tightened. The polite mask cracked. She looked at the folder in Grant's hand on the stage, then back at me. "I am here for community relations," she said stiffly. "Community relations usually doesn't involve after-hours notary services," I said. "Does Mr. Henderson know you are here?" "I have to go to the restroom," she said. She turned and walked away fast. The evasiveness is answer enough. They were going to sign papers tonight. The transfer, Grant announced, wasn't done yet. It was a piece of theater designed to make the signing inevitable. I turned back to the stage. Grant was finishing his speech. "To Avery!" he shouted. "To the legacy!" "To the legacy!" the crowd echoed. I felt a hand on my arm. A sharp, claw-like grip. I turned. Lorna was standing there. She had come up behind me while I was watching the stage. Her face was a rictus of panic and fury, but her body was angled so that to anyone watching, it looked like a mother greeting a daughter. "You," she hissed through her teeth, her smile fixed and terrifying. "What are you doing here?" "Hello, Mother," I said. "I love what you have done with the yard." "You are not doing this," she whispered, her nails digging into my bicep. "Not today. You are going to turn around, walk out that gate, and get in your car. Do you hear me?" "I hear you," I said. "But I am not leaving." "You are ruining her night," Lorna said. "You selfish, jealous little—" "You already did it," I said. I cut her off with a voice that was pure ice. "You already ruined it. I'm just here to hear what you say out loud. I am here to see exactly how you plan to pay for all this using my name." Lorna's eyes went wide. For a second, she looked truly afraid. She realized I wasn't the daughter who cried and apologized. She realized I knew. Then, Grant appeared. He had come down from the stage, flushed with adrenaline and applause. He saw me. He didn't hesitate. He didn't panic. He went on the offensive. "Madeline!" he boomed. He spoke loudly, projecting his voice so that the circle of guests around us, the mayor, the neighbors, stopped talking and turned to look. "I didn't think you were well enough to come," Grant said, his face arranging itself into a mask of paternal concern. "Honey, you look tired. Are you having one of your days?" The guests watched. I could feel their pity. Poor Grant. Poor Lorna. Dealing with the unstable daughter on their big night. "I am fine, Dad," I said. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't get angry. I stood perfectly still. "You seem confused," Grant said, stepping closer, using his physical size to intimidate me. "We told you it would be better if you rested. You know how overwhelmed you get in crowds? We don't want a repeat of last Christmas." There had been no incident last Christmas. I hadn't even been there last Christmas. The urge to scream rose in my throat like bile. I wanted to yell, "Liar!" I wanted to shove him. I wanted to tell the mayor that this man was a fraud. But I saw Brenna's face in my mind. If you scream, you lose. If I yelled, I became the crazy daughter. If I yelled, I validated their story. So I smiled. It was a small, thin smile. "I am not confused, Grant. I am actually very clear. I just wanted to see Avery." Grant blinked. He hadn't expected that. He had expected a fight. He had expected me to provide the drama he needed to dismiss me. "Well," he said, floundering slightly, "well, just try to keep it together. Madeline, for your sister." He grabbed Lorna's arm and steered her away, beaming at the guests as he went. "She is having a hard time," I heard him whisper loudly to the mayor. "Medication adjustment. It is tragic. Really." I stood there, letting the waves of judgment wash over me. I didn't move. I didn't defend myself. I let his cruelty hang in the air, unaccompanied by my reaction. A few minutes later, I felt a tug on my sleeve. It was Avery. She had slipped away from the congratulatory line. She pulled me toward the shadows of the catering tent, behind a stack of unused chairs. Her hands were shaking so hard she could barely hold her champagne glass. "They saw you," she whispered. "They are freaking out. Dad is telling the bank lady to move the schedule up." "The schedule for what?" I asked. "The signing?" Avery said. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a desperate, animal fear. Madeline, you have to help me. I didn't tell you the worst part. What is the worst part? Later tonight, Avery said. After the guests leave, there is a private meeting with the bank. I figured that, I said. The transfer? It isn't just a transfer, Avery said. They showed me the papers this afternoon. There is a line for a witness to verify the guarantor's identity. She took a ragged breath. They told me I have to sign it, she said. They want me to sign as your witness. They want me to attest that I saw you sign the loan documents. But I didn't sign the loan documents, I said. And I'm not there. They have a notary who is a friend, Avery said. He is going to stamp it, but they need a family member to witness the signature to make it look airtight for the bank's compliance team. They want me to swear that you were there and that you signed it willingly. And if you don't? I asked. They said we lose the house, Avery said. Tears finally spilled over, tracking through the powder on her cheeks. Dad said the sheriff will come on Monday. He said they will be on the street. He said it will be my fault because I'm ungrateful. He said if I don't sign, I am killing the family. He is lying, I said. The family is already dead. Avery, he is just trying to animate the corpse. I am scared, she whispered. I don't want to go to jail, but I don't want them to be homeless. Listen to me, I said. I grabbed her shoulders. You are not going to sign that. Do you hear me? You are not going to sign a document witnessing a signature that never happened. That is perjury. That is fraud. That is prison time for you. Not them. They will make me, she sobbed. No, I said. They won't, because I am not leaving. What are you going to do? I am going to wait, I said. I am going to drink this sparkling water, and I am going to smile at the neighbors, and I am going to wait until the music stops, and when they take you into that room to sign, I am going to be there. Avery looked at me. For the first time, she didn't look at me like a rival or a stranger. She looked at me like a sister. Okay, she breathed. Okay. She wiped her face. She fixed her dress. She turned and walked back into the light. I stayed in the shadows. I reached into my bag and touched the cool plastic of the folder. The trap was set. But they had forgotten one thing. The scapegoat had come back to the flock. And she had brought the butcher's knife. The architecture of a family lie is a lot like the architecture of a house. It needs a foundation. It needs load-bearing walls. And it needs a facade. As I stood in the shadows of the catering tent, watching my parents circulate among the Cedar Hollow elite, I finally understood the blueprint they had been working from for years. It wasn't just that they favored Avery. That was too simple. It was that they had assigned us functional roles in the economy of their ego. Avery was the asset, the beautiful, compliant, blank slate upon which they could project their legacy. I was the liability. I was the difficult one, the unstable one, the ungrateful one. But the brilliance of their trap was that my role was necessary to support hers. By painting me as unreliable, they created a preemptive defense for any paperwork that looked irregular. Why did we sign for Madeline? Well, you know how she is. She couldn't handle the details. We had to step in. They had weaponized my autonomy against me. My distance wasn't proof of my independence. To them. And to the town. It was proof of my abandonment. I looked at Avery, who was currently being held hostage in a conversation with the mayor's wife. She looked terrified. I caught her eye and signaled for her to come to the edge of the tent. She extricated herself with a polite nod and hurried over, clutching her champagne flute like a life preserver. "Where is it?" I asked quietly. "The document with the witness line." "It is in Dad's office," Avery whispered, glancing over her shoulder. "In the top drawer of the mahogany desk. But it is locked. Mom has the key on a chain around her wrist. She's wearing it like a bracelet charm." Of course she was. Lorna Collins never left anything to chance. "I can't get it," Avery said, panic rising in her voice. "If I try to take it, she will notice, and if I ask for it, they will know I am talking to you." "Don't worry about the physical paper yet," I said. I have seen enough to know what it is. What are you going to do? I am going to make sure that when they try to use it, the ground falls out from under them, I said. I pulled out my phone. I didn't look at Avery. I typed a text to Brenna Hale. They are moving the signing to tonight. Post-party. Prepare the fraud and coercion documentation we discussed. I may need law enforcement present. Stand by. I hit send. Then I looked at Avery. Go back out there. Smile. Don't drink any more alcohol. You need a clear head. Avery nodded and slipped back into the light. I needed a quiet place. The music, a jazz quartet playing a smooth, inoffensive cover of a pop song, was too loud. The chatter of the guests was a dull roar. I walked around the side of the house, past the humming HVAC units, to the dark alcove near the trash cans. It wasn't glamorous, but it was private. I dialed the number for the Ridgeway Credit Union Fraud Department. It was late, but the automated system connected me to the emergency fraud line after 3 rings. Fraud prevention. This is Marcus, a tired voice said. Hello, Marcus, I said. My voice was crisp, devoid of the trembling I felt in my hands. My name is Madeline Collins. I spoke to an agent earlier this week regarding unauthorized activity on my profile. I am calling to escalate. Do you have a case number? Yes, I said. I recited the number I had written on the back of the motel notepad. I also have the specific dates of the soft inquiries and the exact address of the unauthorized device upload, 4402 Oakhaven Lane. I heard him typing. The sound was rhythmic, steadying. I see the notes here, Marcus said. The file is currently flagged for review. Review is not enough, I said. I am confirming right now, on a recorded line, that I did not authorize the account opening or the address change. I am the victim of identity theft involving a family member. I want to place an immediate freeze on all accounts associated with my Social Security number at your institution. No funds in, no funds out. Total lockdown. There was a pause. Ms. Collins, if we do a total freeze, it will decline any pending transactions. If there are checks outstanding, there are no legitimate checks, I said. Freeze it. If anyone tries to move money tonight, I want the system to scream. Okay, Marcus said. I am initiating the freeze now. You will receive a confirmation code via email. Anything else? Record the time of this call, I said. Thank you. I hung up. I felt a small, grim satisfaction. I had just poured concrete into the gears of at least one part of their machine. Ridgeway was the personal side, the credit cards, the checking accounts they were likely trying to open to funnel the loan money through. If they tried to access it tonight, they would hit a wall. But the big threat, the commercial loan with Cedar Hollow Community Bank, was still in play. That was the monster in the room. I walked back toward the party. The atmosphere had shifted. The sun was fully down, and the tent was glowing against the black sky. The alcohol had kicked in, and the guests were louder, looser. I stood by the entrance, watching my parents. They were in their element. Grant was holding court near the bar, recounting a story that involved him, a sailboat, and a senator, a story I knew for a fact he had stolen from a magazine article. Lorna was accepting compliments on the centerpieces, touching her chest in feigned humility, the key to the desk glinting on her wrist. They looked happy. They looked radiant. They were feeding off the admiration of the town like it was oxygen. I watched them, and I waited for the anger to consume me. I waited for the rage of the neglected daughter to rise up and demand justice, but it didn't come. Instead, I felt a heavy, suffocating grief. They loved this. They loved the lights, the applause, the envy of their neighbors. They loved it more than they loved the truth. They loved it more than they loved me. They loved it more than they loved Avery. We were just fuel. I was the coal they shoveled into the furnace to keep the lights on, and Avery was the paint they slapped on the outside to make it look pretty. They would never change. There was no conversation I could have with them, no tearful confrontation. That would make them see me. They didn't have the capacity to see me. They only had the capacity to see the reflection of themselves in the eyes of others. Madeline? The voice was cloying. dripping with faux concern. I turned. It was Mrs. Vance. She lived 3 doors down. She had been the neighborhood watch captain for 20 years and had a gossip network that rivaled the CIA. She was wearing a floral dress that looked like upholstery. She held a glass of red wine. Her lips stained slightly purple. "Mrs. Vance?" I said politely. "Hello." She stepped into my personal space, tilting her head. "I was so surprised to see you here. Dear, your mother said you weren't up for it." "I decided to come at the last minute," I said. She patted my arm. It was a patronizing pat, the kind you give to a slow child or a well-behaved dog. "Well, that is brave of you," she said. "Truly, after everything," I stiffened. "After everything?" "Oh, you know," she lowered her voice, leaning in. Her breath smelled of Merlot. "Lorna told us about the difficulties, the financial trouble you got into in Larkhill, and how you had to ask them for help again." She shook her head sadly. "It must be so embarrassing for you, coming back here with your tail between your legs. But your parents are saints. Madeline, saints. They are willing to give you a second chance even after you left them with such a mess." I stared at her. The audacity of the lie was breathtaking. They hadn't just covered their tracks. They had inverted reality. I was the one in financial trouble. I was the one who needed a second chance. "Is that what they told you?" I asked. My voice was calm, but it felt tight in my throat. "You don't have to pretend with me," Mrs. Vance said, winking. "We all have our struggles. It is just good that you have a family who loves you enough to pay your debts. You should be grateful, dear. Not everyone would be so forgiving." She patted my arm again and drifted away. Satisfied that she had performed her charitable duty of shaming the black sheep, I stood there, feeling the ground shift. They had prepared the town to reject me. If I stood up on the stage right now and shouted that they were frauds, Mrs. Vance and everyone else would just shake their heads and say, "There goes Madeline, having another episode." Just like Lorna said, they had immunized the community against the truth. I needed water. My mouth was dry as dust. I walked toward the catering station. A young man was restocking the ice bucket. He looked harried. "Excuse me," I said. "Could I get a sparkling water?" "Sure thing," he said, scooping ice into a glass. "Crazy night, huh?" "Very," I said. "We are running low on the vintage champagne," he muttered, checking a list on his clipboard. "I have to save the last 3 bottles for the private moment." I paused, the glass halfway to my lips. "The private moment?" "Yeah," the caterer said, tapping his pen on the clipboard. "The schedule says at 10:30, after the general send-off. Small group in the library, family and the bank people. Supposed to be a toast or something. I gotta make sure the good stuff is ready." 10:30, I checked my watch. It was 9:15. The signing wasn't happening tomorrow. It wasn't happening next week. It was happening in 75 minutes, in the library, behind closed doors, while the catering staff cleaned up the confetti. They were going to do it when the witnesses were gone, when the noise had died down, when they could pressure Avery without anyone hearing her cry. I thanked the caterer and walked away. The timing was tight, but it was clear. I needed to find my father. I found him in the kitchen. The room was a chaotic staging area for the caterers, full of dirty plates and half-eaten appetizers, but Grant was standing in a relatively clear corner near the refrigerator, downing a glass of scotch. He looked flushed. The adrenaline of the speech was wearing off, replaced by the jagged edge of necessity. He saw me. He didn't smile. He set the glass down on the granite counter with a heavy thud. "You are still here," he said. It wasn't a question. "I am," I said. I walked over to him. The kitchen smelled of stale hors d'oeuvres and expensive cologne. "We need to talk, Dad. I don't have time for your drama." "Madeline," he said, turning to pour another drink. "I have guests. Important guests." "Why is Ridgeway Credit Union on my credit report?" I asked. I didn't shout. I didn't scream. I asked it like I was asking for the time. Grant froze. The bottle hovered over the glass. He didn't turn around immediately. I saw the muscles in his neck tighten. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. "I think you do," I said. "There was a soft inquiry 3 days ago, and an address change request, and a document upload from this house." He turned slowly. His face was hard, the jovial host mask completely gone. In its place was the face of a man who was used to getting his way and was annoyed by the obstruction. "You are imagining things," he said. "You are always imagining things." "I have the alert on my phone," I said. "And I went to Cedar Hollow Community Bank today. I saw the other file, the commercial loan, the one where I'm listed as a guarantor." Grant's eyes narrowed. He took a step toward me. He was a big man, and he knew how to use his size. He used to loom over me when I was a child until I shrank away. I didn't shrink this time. I stood my ground. "You are confused," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "That is the trust, the family trust. You are a beneficiary. We put your name on it to protect you." "I am not a beneficiary," I said. "I am the collateral." He let out a short, harsh laugh. "Collateral? You think you are that important? You think you have anything we need?" "I have a credit score that isn't in the toilet," I said. "Which is more than you have." His face turned a dark, ugly red. "Watch your mouth." "Why did you do it, Dad?" I asked. "Why use my name? Why not just ask me?" "Ask you?" He scoffed. "Ask the girl who ran away? Ask the girl who abandoned her family to go live in some gray apartment in Larkhill and pretend she is better than us?" "I didn't abandon you," I said. "I grew up." "You owe us," he snapped. The words exploded out of him, wet and angry. "You owe us everything. We raised you. We fed you. We paid for your clothes, your school, your life. You think you got where you are by yourself? You stand on our shoulders, Madeline, and now, when we need a little help, a little signature to keep the roof over your mother's head, you act like we are criminals?" "Forgery is criminal," I said. "It is not forgery," he hissed. "It is family management. It is doing what needs to be done because you are too selfish to offer." It was the most honest thing he had ever said to me. He didn't see me as a person with rights. He saw me as an investment that was failing to yield returns. He felt entitled to my identity because he had created it. "I know about the signing tonight," I said. "I know about the library." Grant stepped closer. Invading my space, I could smell the scotch on his breath. "You are going to leave," he said. "You are going to walk out that back door, get in your car, and drive back to Larkhill. And you are going to forget you ever saw anything, because if you don't, if you don't, Lorna's voice cut through the air. I turned. My mother was standing in the doorway leading to the dining room. She was holding a tray of empty glasses, looking like the picture of elegance. But her eyes were dead. She walked over to us, setting the tray down on the counter next to Grant's scotch. "If you don't," she said softly, "you will prove everything we have said about you." She looked at me with a terrifying calmness. "Go ahead. Madeline," she said. "Make a scene. Call the police. Tell the bank. Do you know what will happen? We will tell them you are having a breakdown. We will tell them you consented to everything months ago, and now you are retracting it because you are jealous of Avery's party. We will show them the emails, the ones I can write from your old account that you never closed. We will show them the texts." "You would frame me," I said. "We would protect the family," Lorna corrected, "and everyone will believe us, because we are the Collinses, and you are just the daughter who couldn't cut it." She stepped closer, smoothing the lapel of my jacket. The gesture was intimate and violent. "If you ruin this for Avery," she whispered, "you will be the villain forever. You will be the reason she loses her home. You will be the reason your father has a heart attack. You will be alone, Madeline, truly alone." It was a perfect, hermetically sealed trap. If I stayed silent, I was complicit. If I spoke up, I was the aggressor. They had rigged the game so that any move I made confirmed their narrative. "I am not jealous of Avery," I said. I am trying to save her, Lorna laughed. Save her? From what? From a legacy? You are just trying to destroy what you can't have. Grant, they are waiting for you for the toast, she said to my father, dismissing me entirely. Fix your tie. Grant adjusted his collar, shot me one last look of disgust, and walked out. Lorna followed him, pausing only to glance back at me. 10:30, she said. Be gone by then. Or don't. It won't matter. She left. I stood in the kitchen, trembling, not from fear, but from the sheer, crushing weight of their delusion. They truly believed they were the victims. They believed my autonomy was a theft of their property. I walked out of the kitchen and found the back door. I stepped out into the cool night air. I needed to breathe. I leaned against the brick wall of the house. The party was still raging in the tent, but the energy was starting to flag. People were checking their watches. The older guests were leaving. A shadow detached itself from the side of the garage and moved toward me. Madeline, it was Avery. She looked worse than before. Her hair was coming loose from the chignon, and her eyes were red-rimmed. She was holding a piece of paper that had been folded into a tiny square. I found another one, she whispered. Her voice was shaking so hard the words vibrated. What? I managed to get into the study while Mom was in the bathroom, she said. The drawer wasn't locked. She must have forgotten to turn the key after she put the other papers in. She uncrumpled the paper and handed it to me. I held it up to the light coming from the kitchen window. It was a loan agreement. Commercial business loan. Term. 10 years. I scanned the signatories. Borrower. The Collins Legacy Group. LLC. Manager. Avery Collins. And there, at the bottom, personal guarantor. Madeline Collins. But there was a clause I hadn't seen before. I read the fine print. Unlimited personal guarantee. The guarantor agrees to be personally liable for the full amount of the principal and interest in the event of default, regardless of the entity's status. I didn't understand it, Avery whispered. I looked it up on my phone in the bathroom. Madeline. This isn't just for the house. This is for a business loan. $300,000. $300,000. They are starting a consulting firm, Avery said. That is the venture. They are going to teach people how to build a legacy, but they need capital to rent office space, to travel, to market it. They are borrowing it all, and if the business fails, they walk away, I said. And the bank comes after me for $300,000, plus interest. It was a lifetime of debt. It was bankruptcy. It was ruin. And look, Avery said, pointing to the bottom of the page. Look at the date. I looked. The date was tomorrow. They aren't just signing the house transfer tonight, Avery said. They are signing this. They are going to forge your signature on this tonight. And they need you to witness it, I said. Yes, Avery said. They need me to say, I saw you sign it. She looked at me, her face pale. I can't do it, Madeline. I can't. But if you don't, they will destroy you, I said. They are going to destroy me anyway, Avery said softly. I see that now. If I sign this, I am tied to a fraud. If the business fails, I go down with them. I am not the heir. I am the getaway driver. She understood. Finally, she understood. I am not leaving, I said. I refolded the paper and put it in my pocket. Madeline, what are you going to do? Avery asked. Mom said the signing is private. Privacy is their weapon, I said. They rely on the shadows. They rely on the fact that we are too polite to air our dirty laundry in front of the neighbors. I looked at the tent. The band was wrapping up. The remaining guests were milling about, waiting for the final send-off. They want a legacy? I said. I am going to give them one. You are going to crash the signing? Avery asked. No, I said. I am not going to wait for the signing. I pushed off the wall. I smoothed my dress. I checked my bag to make sure the evidence was accessible. Come with me, I said to Avery. Where? To the party, I said. If they are using my identity, the truth belongs in the same public space where they used me as a scapegoat. Madeline, you promised Brenna, Avery said. No screaming. I'm not going to scream, I said. I'm going to testify. I walked toward the tent. Avery hesitated, then followed me, staying a step behind, like a ghost haunting her own life. I walked past the catering staff. I walked past the table with the gifts. I walked into the center of the tent, where the light was brightest. My father was standing near the stage, shaking hands with the bank manager, Mr. Henderson, who had apparently just arrived for the late-night shift. Lorna was beside them, smiling. They saw me coming. Lorna's smile faltered. Grant stiffened. I didn't stop. I walked until I was 10 feet away from them. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just stood there, in my navy blue dress, holding my leather bag. Grant took a step toward me, his face arranging itself into that familiar mask of pity. Madeline, honey, I thought you had gone to lie down. He was giving me one last chance to play the role, one last chance to be the sick daughter. I looked at him. I looked at Lorna. I looked at Mr. Henderson. I am not tired, Grant, I said. My voice was clear, carrying over the murmur of the crowd. I saw guests turn. I saw Mrs. Vance pause with her wineglass. I saw the caterers stop stacking plates. And I am not leaving, I said, because I have some questions about the papers you intend to sign in the library at 10:30. The room went silent. The trap was sprung, but this time, I wasn't the one inside it. The party was dying a slow, glittering death. The jazz band had packed up their brass instruments, leaving only a recorded playlist of soft piano music to drift through the white tent. The majority of the guests, the ones who had come for the free champagne and the social capital, were filtering out toward the valet stand, clutching their party favors, but the core group remained, the inner circle. I watched my father, Grant, signal to the chosen few. It was a subtle gesture, a tilt of the head and a widening of the smile, inviting them into the sanctum. I saw him gather Mr. Henderson from the bank, a woman I recognized as a local notary named Mrs. Gable, and the two trusted friends, wealthy investors who I suspected were the silent backers of his new consulting venture. "Why don't we move this inside?" Grant said, his voice carrying the warm, expansive tone of a man who believes he has won. "We have some vintage port in the library, a final toast to the future." He put his hand on Avery's shoulder. She looked like a statue made of ice, pale and rigid in her champagne silk dress. She didn't look at me. She looked at the ground as he guided her toward the house. Lorna followed, her heels clicking on the patio stones. She was scanning the area, checking for stragglers, checking for me. I stepped out of the shadows. I walked up the stone path that led to the French doors of the library. I moved with a steady, rhythmic pace. I wasn't rushing. I was inevitable. Grant saw me first. He was holding the door open for Mr. Henderson. His smile froze, then reconfigured itself into a look of strained patience. He stepped away from the door, positioning his body between me and the guests, blocking the threshold. "Madeline," he said. His voice was low, meant only for me. "The party is over. You need to go. We are having a private meeting." He reached out, his hand hovering near my elbow, intending to guide me away like a confused geriatric relative. It was a move he had perfected over decades, the physical manifestation of his control. I didn't step back. I didn't flinch. "If there is paperwork with my name on it," I said. "I am staying." Grant's hand landed on my arm. He squeezed, hard, to the guests filing past us. It looked like a father having a tender moment with his daughter. To me, it felt like a vice. "You are drunk," he whispered, his breath hot and smelling of scotch. "You are embarrassing yourself. Go to your car." He tried to turn me, using his weight to pivot me away from the door. I planted my feet. I raised my voice. I didn't scream, but I projected. I spoke with the clarity of a bell ringing in a quiet room. "Do not sign anything with my name," I said. I did not authorize it. The effect was instantaneous. Mr. Henderson stopped in the doorway. Mrs. Gable, the notary, clutched her purse to her chest. The two investors turned around. The ambient chatter of the departing guests on the lawn died away. Grant's face turned a violent shade of red. He released my arm as if I had burned him. "She is confused," Grant announced to the group, his laugh sounding brittle and manic. "My daughter has been under a lot of stress. She gets ideas. Please, everyone, go inside. Lorna, get her some water." "I am not confused," I said. I stepped past him, into the library. The room smelled of old paper and lemon polish. It was the room where I had been lectured as a child. It was the room where I had learned that my feelings were incorrect, that my memories were faulty, that my reality was subject to their approval. I walked to the center of the room. I stood in front of the mahogany desk, the desk where the loan documents were locked away. Lorna rushed in behind me. She closed the French doors, shutting out the cool night air, sealing us in. "Madeline," she cried. She brought her hand to her chest, her face crumpling into a mask of maternal anguish. "Why are you doing this to us? Why do you have to ruin everything?" She looked at the bank manager and the notary, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I am so sorry," Lorna said to them. "She has always been this way. Whatever Avery has. Madeline wants to break. It is a sickness, really." It was a masterful performance. For a moment, I saw the doubt in Mrs. Gable's eyes. I saw the pity. Poor Lorna, dealing with the unstable daughter. "I am doing this," I said, looking directly at my mother, "because you did it to me first, quietly, for years." "We loved you," Lorna snapped, the sorrow edging into anger. "We supported you when no one else would." "You used my identity to secure a home renovation loan 3 years ago," I said. "You used my credit to open a line of credit with Ridgeway, and tonight, you intend to use my name to guarantee a $300,000 business loan for a company that has no assets." Grant strode into the room. He looked massive, filling the space with his rage. "That is enough," he commanded. "Mr. Henderson, I apologize. My daughter is clearly having an episode. We will reschedule the signing." "No," Avery said. The word was soft, barely a whisper, but in the heavy silence of the library, it sounded like a gunshot. We all turned. Avery was standing by the fireplace. She was trembling so hard the champagne glass she was still holding rattled against her ring. She looked at Grant, she looked at Lorna, and then she looked at me. "Avery, honey," Lorna said, her voice dropping into a warning tone. "Don't speak. You are upset." "I am not upset," Avery said. Her voice shook, but she kept going. "I am terrified." She took a step forward. She looked at the notary. "They asked me to sign as a witness," Avery said. "They told me that Madeline had already agreed to the loan, but that she couldn't be here because she was sick. They told me to sign a paper saying I saw her sign it." The notary, Mrs. Gable, took a sharp step back. "Excuse me?" "They said if I didn't do it, we would lose the house," Avery said. Tears began to track through her heavy makeup. "They said we would be homeless by Monday. They said it was my duty." "Avery!" Grant roared. "Stop lying. You are hysterical." "I am not lying," Avery sobbed. "I saw the papers. Madeline is listed as the guarantor, unlimited personal guarantee, and she isn't here to sign it, so you were going to forge it, and you wanted me to cover for you." Mr. Henderson, the bank representative, went very still. He placed his briefcase on the floor. He looked at Grant with a cold, professional detachment. "Mr. Collins," Henderson said, "is this true?" "Of course not," Grant sputtered. He waved his hands, dismissing the accusation. "The girls are emotional. It is a big night. Avery is confused about the paperwork structure. It is a complex trust arrangement." "It is not a trust," I said. I opened my leather bag. I pulled out the folder. "Mr. Henderson," I said. "My name is Madeline Collins. Here are the credit alerts from Ridgeway Credit Union, dated 3 days ago, showing an unauthorized address change to this house. Here is a certified copy of a mechanic's lien placed on this property 3 years ago, listing me as a guarantor, a document I never saw, let alone signed. I placed the papers on the mahogany desk. I laid them out like tarot cards. And here, I said, placing the final document on top, is a notarized affidavit I signed yesterday with my attorney, explicitly stating that I have not authorized any financial activity in Cedar Hollow and revoking any alleged power of attorney my father may claim to hold. I didn't shout. I narrated. I let the dates and the reference numbers do the screaming for me. This is not jealousy, I said. This is documentation. Grant looked at the papers. He looked at me. The veins in his neck were bulging. You ungrateful little brat, he spat. The veneer of the benevolent patriarch vanished. You think you are so smart? You think you can come in here and lecture me about money? Who do you think paid for your education? Who do you think gave you the start you used to build that boring little life in Larkhill? I paid for my education with student loans, I said. Loans I'm still paying off. We gave you a name, Grant shouted. We gave you a legacy. And this is how you repay us? By humiliating us in front of our partners? You are punishing us. That is what this is. You are punishing us because you can't stand not being the center of attention. You can't stand that Avery is the one shining tonight. I looked at him. I really looked at him. He wasn't lying. In his mind, he wasn't lying. He truly believed that my refusal to be his victim was an act of aggression. He believed that my identity belonged to him, to be used as he saw fit for the glory of the Collins name. He didn't see fraud. He saw resource management. The insight was devastating. He wasn't confused. He was committed. He would burn me to ash to keep himself warm, and he would call it love. I don't want to be the center, I said quietly. I just want to be left alone. Then leave, Lorna shrieked. Get out of my house. Not yet, a voice said from the doorway. We all turned. Brenna Hale was standing in the open French doors. She was wearing a trench coat over a gray suit. She looked like a thundercloud. Brenna, I breathed. She stepped into the room. She didn't look at my parents. She looked at the professionals. My name is Brenna Hale, she said. I am retained counsel for Madeline Collins. I am advising all parties to stop any and all execution of documents immediately. She walked over to me and stood by my shoulder. Her presence changed the gravity of the room. This wasn't a family squabble anymore. It was a legal event. Mr. Henderson, Brenna said. Mrs. Gable, my client disputes the authorization of any loans, liens, or guarantees presented by Grant or Lorna Collins. We are formally alleging identity theft and fraud. If you proceed with any signatures tonight, you will be named as co-conspirators in the criminal complaint. Mrs. Gable, the notary, practically ran for the door. I am leaving. I am not involved in this. She vanished into the night. Mr. Henderson stayed. He looked pale. He looked at the file he had brought with him, the file that was supposed to fund the Collins legacy. We have a problem, Henderson said. His voice was tight. You certainly do, Brenna said. If you have processed any preliminary paperwork based on forged signatures, the bank is liable. It is not just signatures, Henderson said. He looked at Grant, and for the first time, he looked angry. Mr. Collins? The loan application for the consulting firm, the one we processed last week. What about it? Grant snapped. It is standard. It required a Patriot Act identity verification, Henderson said, because the guarantor wasn't present in the branch. We required a video interview. My stomach dropped. A video interview? Yes, Henderson said. He looked at me. We have a video on file, recorded at this residence. A woman identified herself as Madeline Collins. She held up a driver's license. She answered the security questions. She confirmed she was authorizing the guarantee. The room went dead silent. I looked at Avery. She shook her head frantically. I didn't do it. Madeline, I swear. I refused. I looked at Lorna. My mother was standing by the curtains. She was very still. Her face was a blank, porcelain mask. Lorna? Grant said. He sounded genuinely confused. Lorna, who did the video? Lorna didn't answer. Show us, Brenna said to Henderson. Henderson hesitated, then pulled out a tablet from his briefcase. He tapped the screen. He turned the volume up. A video played. The background was the wall of this library. Sitting in the chair was a woman. She was wearing a dark wig that looked like my hair. She was wearing glasses like the ones I used to wear. She was holding a driver's license up to the camera. State your name, a recorded voice asked. Madeline Collins, the woman on the screen said. It wasn't my voice. It was Lorna's voice. She had pitched it lower. She had tried to sound younger, but I knew the cadence. I knew the specific, slightly haughty way she pronounced the S at the end of Collins. I stared at my mother. She had put on a wig. She had stolen my old driver's license. She had sat in this room and impersonated me to a bank algorithm. Oh my God, Avery whispered. Grant stared at the screen. He looked at Lorna. Lorna, you said you got Madeline on the phone. You said she agreed to do the video remotely. She was being difficult, Lorna said. Her voice was flat, devoid of emotion. She wouldn't answer my calls. The deadline was approaching. We needed the funds. Grant, you said we needed the funds. So you pretended to be her? Henderson asked, his voice shaking with disbelief. Mrs. Collins, that is federal bank fraud. That is a felony. It was a formality, Lorna snapped. The mask slipped completely. Her face twisted into a snarl of pure entitlement. It is family money. It is all the same pot. She is my daughter. Her credit is my credit. I gave her life. I can use her name if I need to. She turned to Avery. Her eyes were black holes of rage. And you, she hissed, you were supposed to keep your mouth shut. You were supposed to be the good one. We gave you everything. We plucked you out of that trailer park and gave you a castle. And this is how you thank us? Avery recoiled as if she had been slapped. You ungrateful little parasite, Lorna screamed. You are nothing without us. Nothing. Just a second cousin we dressed up to look like a Collins. The silence that followed was absolute. The guests outside were gone. The music had stopped. The only sound was the humming of the refrigerator in the kitchen down the hall. Mister, Henderson picked up his tablet. He picked up his briefcase. I am freezing all accounts associated with this family, he said. I am flagging this application for the legal department. Do not contact the bank. We will contact you. He walked out. He didn't look back. Brenna stepped forward. Grant, Lorna, my client is leaving now. If you attempt to contact her or use her identity for any purpose, we will file for an immediate restraining order, and I suspect you will have your hands full with the federal investigation that is about to start. Grant sank into the leather chair behind the desk. He looked old. He looked deflated. The legacy had evaporated, leaving only a tired man with a drinking problem and a mountain of debt. Lorna stood by the window, staring at her reflection in the dark glass. She didn't look at us. She was already retreating into some internal narrative where she was the martyr, the victim of ungrateful children and rigid banking laws. I looked at Avery. She was standing in the middle of the room, looking at the door. She looked like she was seeing it for the first time, not as an exit, but as an opening. Come on, I said to her. Avery looked at me. I can't go to Larkhill. I don't have anything. You have the truth, I said. It is heavy, but it is yours. Avery took a breath. She reached up and pulled the diamond pins out of her hair. She let the blonde waves fall around her face. She wiped the smudge of mascara from her cheek. She walked over to the desk. She picked up the legacy folder Grant had been so proud of. She dropped it into the wastebasket. Then she walked to the door. We walked out of the library together. We walked through the empty house, past the garlands of flowers that were already starting to wilt. We walked out the front door, past the Happy 25th banner that was flapping listlessly in the wind. We didn't say anything until we reached the street. The air was cold and clean. "What happens now?" Avery asked, looking back at the glowing house. "Now," I said. "It explodes." I watched the lights of the house. Inside, the phone was probably already ringing. Inside, the reality they had held at bay for decades was finally flooding the basement. I opened the car door. "Get in." Avery got in. I drove us away from Oakhaven Lane. I didn't look back. I wasn't the difficult daughter anymore. I was just Madeline. And for the first time in my life, that was enough. Thank you for listening to this story. It has been a journey into the quiet, suffocating corners of family secrets, and I appreciate you walking this path with Madeline and me. I would love to hear from you. Where are you listening from today? Have you ever felt like the villain in someone else's narrative just because you refuse to play along? Please subscribe to Revenge Stories for more deep dives into the complexities of justice, betrayal, and the human heart. Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. Let's keep the conversation going.